Hi, guys. Welcome to another episode of The Deciding Factor. I'm John.
And I'm Alton.
And I'm Barb.
And together, we're actually live here in Austin. And Barb is about to leave, so I'm sure she's a little down about it. But we figured while she's here, we're going to have a little more fun. That being said, recently in the news, you've seen a bunch of protesting. Throughout the past whole 2020, we had the Black Lives Matter and dealing with all of that mess going on throughout multiple cities. And now we have the U.S. Capitol that was protested or rioted, whatever you want to call it, by some Trump supporters. So we are actually going to discuss, does protesting actually change anything? Or are they all pointless? This will be an interesting topic, and I can't wait to talk to y'all about it. Anything y'all want to say before we get started?
It's Friday then.
Saturday, Sunday.
What?
All right, guys, y'all stay tuned, and we will see you on this Deciding Factor.
Everyday life issues broken down to help you build your own opinions on the issues that matter most. Coming to you from Austin, Texas, this is The Deciding Factor with your host, Alton Hill and John Herzog.
Hi, guys. Welcome back. So does protesting change anything, or are they pointless? That's the topic. And I must say, when you think back, can you actually think of a protest that has existed in the past or in recent time? I guess they're all going to be in the past, but still.
Well, I did have this great plan for tomorrow's protest. It was going to be really good, but no.
I mean, I think, all throughout I think we have a lot of protesting during election times. I've seen a lot of people like waving flags on bridges, a lot of flag waving this year. I think even down the street here, there's been a lot of, what do they call it? The Trump train, where everybody's got their American flags and the Trump flags and driving around and stuff. But, like when we were talking before the show about Martin Luther King and a lot of civil rights movements, think about in the 70s, which was before I was around, but, a lot of the hippies and whatever, like protesting things too. So
Why they got to be hippies?
I mean, because that's what they were, right?
Yeah. Not all
Why is that got to be like a bad thing?
The anti-war protest.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking like right after Trump got into office, there were some pretty major protests. They had the Women's March. It became a thing. Everyone knitted their weird pink hats.
Yeah.
It was everywhere.
Was it a cancer awareness protest?
No, it was a opposed to. I don't think I can say this on a podcast.
Well,
It
we're
involved.
going to let you do that, Barbara.
It involved
I'm
a
not gonna touch it.
comment that President Trump had made.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of
With kitty
slang-
cats.
as it were. Mhm.
Yes. Okay.
So they were like a
We know
whole
where
bunch
you're
of
going with that dirty
Pink
segment.
cat ears. So anyway, they did a huge march about that. And I remember asking women that went, I mean, they were all over the nation, but I remember asking them like, what is it supposed to do? Like, what do they want to happen? And pretty much everyone that I talked to just said like, we're voicing our opinion. We think he's scum. I needed a hat to prove it.
Well, I'm going to throw a damper in all y'all's party right away. Can you think of the first major protest in U.S. history?
Like the American Revolution, you're talking like Boston Tea Party.
Oh, there you go.
Mhm.
You thought you were going to out history me, John?
I thought I was going to outdo you, but so much for the research. Don't need to do any of that when you got Barb on the show.
So, I mean,
Can't teach
well, that's the
anything.
thing that I've heard a lot of people talk about, right? Is that there's this idea that at some point it's a protest and now it's a riot. And then you hear some people say, well, the founding fathers, they were, looters and rioters and treasonists and all of this stuff, which I think is an interesting question as to people's stance on the whole protesting, rioting thing. And it's like it's almost like, well, if you're on my side, I view it one way, but if our views don't coincide, then you're definitely rioting and looting, and it shouldn't happen.
Don't you think the difference though is what they wanted out of it? I mean, if you think about the Boston Tea Party, it was specific. The fact that, I mean, they were in a way kind of rioting. They dumped all the tea.
Totally.
Yeah.
But they wanted a really particular thing. You would know when it had accomplished something. Right?
So like let's talk about that. What did they want?
Okay, so
other than coffee.
Right. Yeah, coffee was a byproduct. Okay. No taxation without representation. Yes. Right. So the British Empire was overextended and they needed money to fight all these wars that they had going worldwide because they were taking over so much.
That's weird. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so they wanted this colony that they had started to make them money, basically, to support what was going on. And so they, there were acts that came out at the time where people had no say. You had all of these colonists that were forking over huge amounts of money that they had earned, and they weren't ever getting a voice, right? And so you could look at that and say, yeah, it was a riot, and yeah, it was, there was violence, but they wanted a really particular thing, and you could tell when and if they got it. I feel like that's what I can't find in most of today's protests.
Well, I mean, but what's really defining the riots, right? Because you're talking 342 chests that they destroyed by throwing it in to the Hudson or Boston.
Right.
The problem is nowadays there's a lot worse going on. Like you look at what is it? Not Kentucky. What was the first Minneapolis, right? That was the first one this year, and they burned building after building. They attacked the cops. I mean, it was bad. You called in the National Guard and all this. There's a big difference between that versus the Boston Tea Party, where they just trashed a bunch of tea, which they then had to pay back before any of this all later turned into our independence being let go from Britain. So two very different stories.
Yeah, I think that there's, like, honestly, when I saw that whole police infrastructure burning down, to me, that it made a lot of sense, because the people in the city were not happy with what happened, and they were not happy with the police and that corruption. And so they did something about that. I'm not agreeing with what they're doing, but I can kind of see the rationale, like, hey, look, we don't like how you're managing it. You're corrupt and whatever. And so we want to fight back towards that. But then there still wasn't any, even if you're burning down the police station, it's not like you have to have more foresight to say, okay, well, now what happens? Well, right. Now they're going to tax us to rebuild the thing. And it's the same people that are going to be occupying a brand new facility now, or not, or are we just going to be an anarchy with no one to call for 911? So I don't think that there was a lot of well, what happens after a month from now or 2 months?
Right. And that's where it does become a little bit like watching a little kid, where it's the point is, I'm mad.
Yeah.
Something, even if it was legit, I think the original instigation of those riots, I get it. Totally. I get the grief behind it. I get the injustice. I could never tell watching it. I feel kind of brokenhearted watching it. I'm not sure what it's supposed to do. What am I supposed to do? Am I just supposed to be angry with you? I can't influence whether or not he's, someone is prosecuted. I can get mad.
Well, I had the argument on Facebook with some people from high school back in the day. They had in the NFL, they did the kneeling during the national anthem.
Mm-hmm.
That was their quote unquote peaceful protest towards equal rights. And now they're saying we didn't listen to them then. Now it's turned into 2020 with all the rioting that happened with Black Lives Matter. But is that really,
Was the kneeling an effective protest though? You guys used to watch football. What do you
I
think
I
about
mean,
that?
we're all aware of it, though, right? Like whether you watch it or not.
We're aware of it, but do you think that it was protesting? Oh, I should have said, do you think it was protesting what they wanted to protest?
I think someone was just trying to scream out and get attention and tried to make it into something else, but they didn't
I
take
don't
it
know,
further.
man. I think Kaepernick or whatever his name is, he was very clear. They're like, why are you doing this? And he's like, this is why. This is why, because I want people to know that I'm upset. I don't agree with how things are going, and I want to draw attention to that. So like how is that not productive? I mean, I think you can totally have the right to say, I don't want to watch you do this and I don't care about your agenda, and change the channel. Like, I get that.
Well, I guess I was wondering, like, specifically, what is it about kneeling during the anthem? How would he know if his point had been made? How would he know if it had produced a change? Like, if race relations were different in the United States, because what would it have looked like if we had listened? If people are saying that we didn't listen and therefore we ended up with these riots, I don't know what I was supposed to see changed. Like, I don't know what that was supposed to do.
Yeah.
And I think it just ended up, you alienate a whole lot of veterans, right? Who
Sure.
like, the flag is.
Yeah.
I just think he needed to capitalize a little different, right? Because all it did was bring attention to the NFL, and he didn't do anything further with it, because obviously what he needed to accomplish was somehow change law.
Mhm.
I was gonna say,
Right?
like, the world,
The world.
humanity.
Well, I think,
But
sorry.
but
John,
but
go
I
ahead.
mean, you got to start somewhere, and you can't just do it every other Sunday or every Sunday, be seen on TV, and then that's it. You need to move over to Congress, the House, the Senate, talk to somebody, start pushing something.
Yeah, I think that's what, to me, a huge difference is between kind of like a temper tantrum and then a real agenda. Like we were talking about, school reform, right? And public schools and things that we could probably do better. And that's great. But then you actually have to take action and do it and be organized and effective. Otherwise, you're just complaining about a problem. And so, which is probably maybe what a lot I do on the show is just complain, but
Just don't protest. Let's go get a podcast.
That's true. But I think that's what I feel like Martin Luther King did a great job of is, yes, there were protests and events, but they had, what are you doing, John?
My cords got tangled up here. I'm getting
Man.
pulled sideways.
Yeah. So
My elbow had nothing to do with it.
Martin Luther King had an agenda, an idea, goals. Like, here's our, like, whatever list of demands. We want to be able to go into a restaurant. We don't want segregated schools. And what that did was it allowed people to get behind something and know, like what you're saying, Barbara, look, we got it. Look,
Yeah, I'm sitting in a restaurant.
All the schools are together. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
in the restaurant, or I don't have to move to the back of the bus.
Right.
I'm going to sit here. And I think that protesting, if done properly, can inspire those types of actions to say, you know what, like Rosa Parks, I'm not getting up. We've got a movement here. We don't want this type of behavior. We've voiced that, we've said it, we've communicated it. And this is me getting arrested because like, this is what I believe in. And I'm willing to, and that's like a peaceful style of protest.
You can get arrested doing a peaceful protest. I mean, if they tell you have a curfew, technically you can get arrested for being out there still. But
you can also get kicked out of restaurants
for not
I
wearing
was
a
going to
mask.
ask about that. Is that considered a protest? I mean,
well, I kind of wonder, like, what's the difference between a protest and a boycott, and then, just straight looting and rioting. Well, I mean, I know what that is, but I think that's where, I'm sorry, my phone has not stopped buzzing. It's driving me crazy here. Let's just try a power
so
button.
it happens to have a really popular person on the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's
It's all your fans trying to get a hold of you. Hey, I see you.
Can you see me now? Can you see me now? It almost feels like you could categorize this. Like, you've got the extreme rioting and looting, which I think that we can fairly universally agree is a non-productive thing, or it's going to cost you more than you're going to get. Right?
But if the Tea Party is one of the first ones, and that's how it started out, where it's a form of rioting, technically, right? What's
Sort of.
what was the founding fathers' vision
Property
of?
is getting destroyed. There,
Property's getting
for sure.
destroyed. Yeah.
So what's the founding fathers' view of peaceful protesting then?
I think you'd have to go further back though, because they didn't start there. They started with quite a few letters. They went through all of the legal means, and they weren't given. There wasn't an option. And I guess maybe that's part of the problem I have with how we protest today, is that we do have options that they didn't have. Like, we do have the option of letting our money decide things, like where you shop, you know, what you're going to support. We have the option of raising the kinds of sons that grow up to be excellent police officers. We have the option of going through the courts. And the race riots are so personal. It's so painful to watch. But at the same time, if you look at the system itself is not racist. We have the same legal options. I can't
Well,
keep saying that. Regardless,
so
irregardless.
if you go back to one of our other podcasts where we had that investigator, right? He actually stated that the system is racist. He states that he sees a lot of the injustice done in the court system towards the Black community.
But that's people, though.
I was going to say that's anecdotal. That's not the system itself. The law doesn't say if you're Black, you're not allowed to sue for this. Now, you could say in practice, like, people do it wrong. They're always going to.
Right.
Yeah.
But it means that there's the opportunity to raise up people that do it right, or to go become the person. Like, there's nothing stopping us collectively from,
like theoretically.
Yeah, we could go become lawyers. We could go you could find the people. We have options that are, I think, more effective. They just require longer term thinking, like a bigger picture.
And John, maybe you can check on this, but whose tea was that they threw into the harbor?
Britain's. That's why they had to pay it back.
I mean, it was the king's tea, though, right?
Yeah.
So that's different than saying,
like
there's a racial problem, and so I'm going to just go burn down Cabela's because there's mostly white people in there.
Right.
Like, it's just not. It doesn't make sense. But when the king is saying, I'm taxing you and I'm not giving you any say, any opinion, it's like, well, I'm going to take your tea and toss it. Did you hear me now? We need representation. It's a little different. Yeah. And it's not, I agree that there should be some type of escalation. And I think that that's what our founding fathers did, right? It was like, hey, this is what we want. This is what we want. We're not getting it. Okay, here's some of this Boston Tea Party stuff. And then there's more letters. And then it's like, well, we need your guns. And they're like, I don't think so. And then there's standoff, shot heard around the world. And it's like, okay, clearly you're not hearing us anymore. And now you're shooting us,
Okay, so we're doing this. Yeah, pretty much.
So like when I look at I'm all in favor of protesting. I think you got to think about more than a month from now, though. You need to think a year from now, 2 years, 5 years. Like, what is the big plan with your grievance?
So let's play devil's advocate here. Black Lives Matter movement.
Game.
Say what?
My favorite game.
Give me that option C, baby. No, but look at the Black Lives Matter. Okay. So they've supposedly tried to do it in different ways that was peaceful ahead of time. Now 2020 comes along and shit hits the fan. They show this video of Floyd getting killed on TV, and the media takes control of it from there. Yeah. But, what's their next step? Because like you said, we're trying, we're being peaceful. You're not changing anything. You're not doing something for us. Now I'm throwing my tea at you.
I think the problem is in the question. The problem is in the they. The problem with the Black Lives Matter as a protest is that it's an ideological protest. It has Marxist roots. So if you come into it with an assumption of Marxism as reality, which is not, then your expectations of what this protest is supposed to do will be different. You're already, even just in this conversation, we're talking about what should they have done as the Black community. That presupposes this whole
But to avoid the rioting, what are they expected to do? Because he just said so himself about the Boston Tea Party. It was, we start down low, we build up. At what point are you going to listen and do what we say? So let's put it in their perspective. Were they justified in what they did throughout 2020? Because nothing was taking place, and basically now this is the next step.
What did they want to take place?
They wanted more freedoms and to be treated more equally.
I don't even know what that means.
So,
because if I meet someone on the street and we look differently, most of the time in our just like one-on-one relationships, I don't think this is a thing. I think people experience the kind of horrific racism that sparked the riots, but I don't see a practical thing there. Like, tell me what law to change.
I think
it's not enough to just say overthrow.
I think there's more extreme cases in different parts of the U.S. Like,
for sure,
you've been here in Austin for a few days this week, and I'm sure you see more of a fun-loving environment. We ran across several different colored people.
Well, I get to hang with you guys. Of course, I've been in a fun-loving environment.
Well, but besides us, we went down Congress and all that, talked to some random people. Tried to get convinced to do drugs, I'm sure, is what they wanted.
He was doing the white guy with the dreadlocks.
No, he wasn't white.
I mean, yeah,
Just
he
saying.
was.
No.
His mask was blue. The rest of him was white. The hair was definitely dreaded.
I wasn't there.
Anyhow.
I don't know.
Fake white boy dreads.
So, I mean,
who's the leader of Black Lives Matter? Like, what is their name?
That's a different type of conversation, but you got to think. So from the arguments I've heard from a few colored friends of mine, is they're set up to fail to begin with due to systemic racism. So trying to get into certain colleges, getting into certain schools, it's harder because the history, the way it turned, has put them at a disadvantage.
I don't buy the premise.
But we're all white people. But
we're white people. But what
I
happened?
actually do see what they're saying, because even it goes way back to the black kids growing up without father figures, right? Well, that's due to some of the laws that were put in place and more enforced towards the black community. So most of the black males ended up in jail. Therefore, the mothers had to raise their kids by themselves. So that caused some issues. There's also been videos and tutorials about trying to get certain like loans or getting into better schools because you were already poor. How are you supposed to get from poor into a better? And the
premise here, though, is that it's systemic, not that it happens because sometimes people are bad. I guess when all this hit, I thought, okay, I don't want to be a completely naive, white person that has no idea what other races are experiencing. So I went and I found like black people that were writing about it because I wanted to hear, what does this sound like? This is not a universal experience. You could have the exact same story come from a white family that grew up in poverty, but we don't get to call it systemic. I think that there's an underlying problem with the assumptions going in, and that means that the results come out fuzzy. We don't know what we want out of it because you have to buy into the worldview for the riot to make sense. And if I'm having huge sections of culture saying, no, this is not true. This is not universally true. You're going to find these experiences everywhere you go.
Well, even
but it's not the system.
And I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, but there was a couple of years where, most of my elementary, high school years were in a, 99% white Texas town. But a couple of my junior high, middle school years, I was kind of like that 1 or 3% of white kids.
1 or 3?
Yeah, 1 to 3. I mean, I don't know, right? I was 11 years old. I'm not keeping track of.
I like the number 14. Can we stick with 14%?
No, that's too high. It was all Hispanic, some black, and like a couple of white kids. And I got made fun of all the time for being white. I don't think that made me school less better because I was white there, but definitely like I was a minority for a little bit. But back to protesting, I think if you're going to protest and you have a problem with what's happening, then you have to have a list of demands. You need a front runner who's going to be like the poster child for this and advocating for the cause. And you have to have some demands, and you need to get people behind it and take actionable steps to actually make a difference. Even the whole concept of just defund the police, to me, is not articulated well. Okay, if there's police brutality and that's the issue, we need to put people into power who are actually going to revisit, like we talked about with schools. You know, there's a lot of issues that I think could be worked through in public schools. I mean, probably everything, right? I mean, I'm constantly looking at my business, wondering what can I do better? Probably I need to protest myself some. But,
that might count as a boycott. I don't know.
Boycott myself? I don't want to do that. That's crazy. But anyway, you know, having a real agenda and saying, okay, guys, what can we do? Okay, well, we need to elect this lawmaker because they have good plans on how to restructure this, or looking who are the city council members that we can get elected on board to do this and have an effort to really make a difference, not just burning the police station down. I think you need to have more vision about that and maybe say, I want change right now, but if it's not going to be right now, then I for sure want this change to be in place by the time my children are born. Mm-hmm. So,
but when are you justified to take that next step to make it make your voice heard more? Because your very statement of let's go elect somebody that's going to make those change. Mm-hmm. The Trumpers, right? Mm-hmm. They just protested / riot, however you want to look at that whole event.
Well, definitely trespassed.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think it might count.
I mean, they didn't burn the Capitol down, but there were
windows.
There's definitely some vandalism and somebody got shot and killed, at least one, right?
Apparently a cop died due to some injuries. I'm not sure on the details on that one, but
it wasn't good.
But I mean, that was based on an election process that they think is fraudulent. So now what do? You can't elect somebody because you think that there's this Dominion server crap. Mm-hmm. You think that, you know, you're being screwed out of your voice, your choice, and everything. So how are you going to do that?
You know, I think that there's an assumption that there's ever a time that it's the reasonable action to riot. And I don't think that's true. So what should they have done? I mean, I think they took the legal means available to them. Overall, there were lawsuits. They asked for recounts. None of it worked. And we can say that, you know, they could say the system has been corrupted. It's exactly what the Black Lives Matter movement was trying to say, but that's not provable. So what should they have done now? Get a new candidate, put up someone that can win in 4 years. Like, I think there's not.
Okay.
Because all it made me want to do when I see that happen is like separate myself from the movement. And that's not helpful.
Well, you can take one thing, for example, you know, one of their arguments was, say, Pennsylvania. They had a law that was in place. Part of their government changed that law, but that wasn't a legal process. And so they counted a bunch of ballots that constitutionally shouldn't have been counted.
Yeah.
Now, does that really save it for Donald Trump? Does he still remain president? No. I'm sorry that one state's not going to do it for you. But still, how are we going to fix something when it's clear as day the law was this, you broke it, and you're not doing anything about it?
Well, and I think that's where protesting starts, right? It's like saying that I want to let you know that this is not okay. And the problem that I have, like, I feel like I pay a lot in taxes and I don't like it. And
you should throw tea at them.
I still have such an awesome life that I'm not ready to start a war because I pay taxes. I'm not ready to go and like drive a police car into a river because I pay too much taxes.
I bet you if it came down to masks, you would start a war.
Well, but that's like, yeah. So like the other day, we're supposed to go out to eat, right? And I'm like, I'm not doing the mask thing. And so they don't want me to be in the building, apparently. But to me, it's like, well, I don't like what you're doing, and I'm going to let my voice be heard. Now, is that going to change anything in that restaurant? No way.
Yes.
If enough people did it.
If enough
Because
people did
three
it.
of us were left there at the table wondering if we were supposed to order or go to McDonald's.
We just had to have extra margaritas because we figured that you would have had one.
So we drank some for you.
Mhm.
So, but the thing is, like, what is the other option? Like, if you watch something terrible happen, somebody get killed, not doing anything I don't think is going to help either. And so I think sometimes all the protest is a voice saying, look, this is how I feel, that I'm going to take a stand, and maybe you inspire someone else to, or not. You know, when that guy was escorting me out of the restaurant, and I'm pointing to everyone else who doesn't have a mask on because they're literally like sitting on a bar stool and, you know, arms reach away. And I'm like, seriously, dude, you're going to kick me out of here for not wearing a mask when everyone in here, except for like 2 people standing next to the door, don't have a mask? And he's like, well, it's the rules, you know, they make the rules, I just enforce it. And I was like, well, at some point you could try thinking for yourself. And so maybe
Common sense doesn't apply.
Maybe he doesn't care about that, or maybe he goes home and is like, thinks about that.
Yeah.
Like, man, he's the 16th person that came in here and told me to think for myself. And maybe
I think about it.
I mean,
You should
maybe
have given
maybe not.
your the deciding factor business card to him.
There you go.
Said, you think about it, let me know. Call me.
See, I think it's a good example though.
Maybe we should get
because-
him on the podcast. That
Yeah,
would be
Let's
you
call
go.
him right now. Here we go.
Tell him to bring margaritas. Yeah, it's a good example though, because I'm still thinking back to Pennsylvania. They could move. At this point, we do have,
It's not a
Some-
very liable option. I mean,
Yeah,
but I mean, I think that
you're going to
that's-
up and
it's that
re-
kind of thing that if you're serious about it, you think that this is, you know, needs to be changed for the next generation. You can go into politics, you can go into law enforcement, there are things that you can do. I'm just not sure that the short term, like even the not wearing a mask in a restaurant, I think, okay, I agree with you. You did it peacefully. You didn't break everything on your way
Yeah,
out.
no, I should have, like, at least one glass.
Baby steps,
you
yeah.
know.
But it's, you know, that's
I'm going to take a mint.
personal. I'm gonna take a minute. So there.
All your toothpicks are mine. No.
You know what was funny is while we were sitting there waiting for you and your wife to come back, I started eating the chips. I'm like, I might not be paying for it. Screw it. I'm just going to eat the chips. And I started,
Is that your protest?
that was my
It's a
protest.
very
I didn't.
peaceful protest.
I should have at least taken a chip, you know. No, I mean, I think it's varying degrees, and I'm glad that we're in a nation where we're so blessed to where I get my panties in a wad because I can't eat at a restaurant without, you know, like, it's a prideful thing, but to me, it's a freedom thing. I value freedom almost over everything. It's high priority for me. So I understand that not everyone feels as strongly about it as I do, or just totally disagrees with me completely. And that's totally cool.
They have the right to be wrong. It's okay.
So
I mean, I don't need you to agree with
Yeah.
me, but I'm still going to stand up and get escorted out so that we can talk about it, because I want to let people know that you might be that one psycho % like me, but we can stand together and be like, yeah, we're just going to get kicked out of restaurants because we're not going to wear a mask because it's insane, and we're not going to turn into like crazy people. I mean, if you're wearing it everywhere and whatever, I get it, but
you showed good restraint. You did not headbutt him.
I didn't headbutt him. I didn't strangle him. I didn't even call him any
But-
names.
Okay. So we've talked about this off air. I know me and you have. I don't know if me and Barb really have, but, you know, rioting to me, once it starts becoming of a criminal manner, I've not been okay with. But now that we've been doing the show, had to research some of these protests, I really need y'all to tell me at what point is it okay to take it a little further like we did in the Boston Tea Party. Let me go with another one. So you mentioned the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, which had Martin Luther King. That was that. Another one that was in 1913 was Women's Suffrage Parade, which ultimately took 7 more years, but it led to women's voting rights in 1920. So
Now look at the mess we're in. Sheesh. Just kidding.
you
Different
said it,
joke.
not me.
Yeah, I know, because you couldn't say it. I didn't want you to get sued, so I'm just saying it for you.
Appreciate it.
Sued?
Sued
I
or
would love-
harassed or assaulted.
Yeah. Fill in the blank.
So, I mean,
We should talk about who should be able to vote at some point, but
We
go
really
ahead.
should.
We would make everyone mad. I'm sure of it.
so here's another one. Stonewall riots, 1969 was,
Is that the hippies?
I don't know if we would consider them hippies, but
Do they have
it's,
long hair, tie-dye shirts, smoking the Doja?
give me a second and I'll let you know. This was the beginning of removing of discrimination laws against the LGBTQ community.
I think you're missing letters.
Yes. Well, that's what the article says. So
Okay.
screw you.
But did they have tie-dye shirts?
And long hair.
That article didn't say, and they didn't have a picture. So,
Where are you getting
They
this
need to-
research? I'm telling you.
republicansrs.com.
Is that a thing?
No,
Oh,
the dumbest thing that popped into my head. I'm sorry.
nailed it.
Nailed
That
it.
was real.
March for Our Lives 2018.
Well, how much rioting was going on? What about Rodney King? I mean, there's a lot of riots there, right?
I don't know that there was a lot.
Was
Nothing
there
compared
rioting?
to 2020, right?
I don't know.
That
That's
was
kinda like before I
that was
was
LA.
paying Attention.
All happened in LA, and that mess
And it
started there,
stayed in
ended
LA.
there.
It-
But
it didn't
this
stay in
year
LA,
it
though.
was US wide. We even had some here in Austin, which didn't pan out very well for them because you don't F with Texas.
Well, some people got shot, right?
Yeah. I guess my point is with most
Well, and
of
they got a
those,
lot
like,
of
They
arrested,
got
too.
shot because they pulled a gun on a guy that is living in Texas
Well,
and
and
owns a
there
gun.
were a lot of people got arrested for standing in the road too, right?
Yes,
They're trying to block the right of way, which is like
that's a
when you
law.
look at the Constitution, that's a big thing, is having the right to move about freely. That's why these DWI checkpoints are completely unconstitutional. And I don't want people driving around drunk. Don't get me wrong.
Hey,
but
do you have an accident going on outside your door?
no, man, school's out.
Oh.
So I live right next door to a school.
Squirrel.
So
What's
I
going
have a
on
whole
next door?
parade coming down the street.
They're protesting our
Well, yeah. And so
Podcast.
like parents, yeah, parents can't,
no more.
they can't go to the school and pick up their kids. So they have to stand or wait in
Serious?
line. Well, yeah, coronavirus, man.
Okay, grief.
If we let the parents in, everyone's gonna get sick. Obviously, got to stay in their car with your
So
mask.
hard to keep a straight face through this.
Literally, I went to get some the laptops, and they said sit in your car with your mask and your windows up.
Like, but how will I get the laptop?
You can roll down your window to accept the laptop, but that's it. Yeah, it's kind of insane.
That's
They
ridiculous.
handed my daughter a water balloon and said, "Throw it at the principal."
So I literally rolled down all the windows, opened the sunroof, made sure no one was wearing a mask.
So get your laptops.
Yeah, got two.
Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I have problems following rules that I think are ridiculous. I think by nature, I'm just pretty stubborn. But to answer your question, when do we have? Are we going to do a deciding factor? Or are we just going to like
We
leave
will.
it for crickets?
We will, but I mean, you're
And that's
you're not
it.
helping me out here.
I think there's two different
Because-
kinds of protests you're talking about, and one of them I can see a point in. The whole like getting evicted out of the restaurant actually makes more sense to me than most of what we're doing in 2020 anyway.
Should I go back and burn the restaurant down?
You should not see, and that's
What
where I
about one
think
next to it?
it's a totally different thing. Like they
Like
could
one in
throw
a
you
different
out,
city, maybe.
but you want them to be able to throw you out. That's part of being
Okay.
American, right?
You got people listening to this
Yeah,
show going,
totally.
"Wait, you're okay to protest a mass, but you're not okay to protest to save a black person's lives."
If I actually
that?
could save a black
we didn't
person's
say
life by not wearing a mask in a restaurant, you betcha I would do that. But it needs to be something, there needs to be a point that we can actually do something about. Otherwise, all it does is fuel the emotions. And whether your emotion is guilt or anger or fear, like it doesn't solve anything. So tell us what you want solved with your protest. The suffrage markers. Okay, they wanted the vote.
Mhm.
I get that.
Yeah.
I can understand that. I think we are way too far into these nebulous, emotionally charged protests that have to lead to
Yeah,
violence because there's nowhere else to go.
Well, and there's no leadership and there's no demand.
Mhm.
Like, I think it should, and maybe I'm ignorant on it. And so maybe there's people who are, I don't know, maybe they're very well versed in what Black Lives Matter is trying to accomplish. And I'm just totally unaware
You should read the website.
of like everything that they're trying to do. But I feel like they're not doing a very good job if I don't know about it, you know? So I shouldn't have to go to your website and read it. It should be on like news clips. Like, here's what we want. You know, we want to be sure that there are these types of tests for racial discrimination going into the deal, some sort of internal affairs to check, you know, specifically for these types of things, something that I can report, or, you know, someone would sponsor like some of these, you know, if wealthy individuals who share that same vision, like let's contribute to a nonprofit that goes and audits, you know, like it's a tip line, you know, if you got a FBI's most wanted list, well, why can't we have, hey, LA or Chicago, like these people, New York, they're racist. Here's a tip line. Like, can you go and investigate something that says, here's some actionable things that we can take, not just all white people are racist and we don't want any more cops. So
Check your privilege is only so helpful. So they're like, okay, I
yeah.
checked, but I don't know what to do with it now.
Yeah. So I think that, but I guess the same thing could be said for me not wearing a mask, you know, except I guess in my own head, it's kind of obvious, but maybe to them or whoever is protesting, it's like, well, this should be obvious to everyone. But
I'm pretty sure you explained though. Like, didn't you?
I don't know. I was kind of like triggered in the moment, but like generally, well, I told him he needed to learn how to think for himself. And I was like, really, dude, there's no one wearing a mask, but you're upset because I might go to the bathroom and not have one on. I think he was offended.
Door handles.
He was offended that I told him I didn't have one. Every time I tell someone that I don't even have one, they're triggered. It's not that I'm not going to wear it. It's like, they're like, where's your mask? And I think most people, they're probably responsive. Oh, I forgot it in the car. Or like, oh, I just dropped it outside and I don't know, but this is what I'm assuming the response I get, like, I don't have one. And they're like,
I still think you should have just ran to the table, sat down, and then it would be done.
You got to go, man. Cause like you don't even have one. Anyway, so I want to answer the question. I don't know if I have the answer, but I think that there is a time when people have to get together and get serious and make an impact. But
is there ever a time for rioting?
I don't think that rioting is helpful.
Okay.
I don't see how that's helpful.
I need the distinguishing here before I can say that.
No. I don't think that there's ever a time for rioting. I think.
So you think the Boston Tea Party was mishandled?
I don't describe that as rioting.
I don't think it was a riot.
I don't know.
Okay, so what's your definition of rioting? Just so we can get that clear.
Rioting, in my head, is we've got a lot of people together. Maybe we didn't have intentions on vandalizing or stealing, but then the sun goes down, we get all amped up and we start setting things on fire and mad and just, hey, there's a window. I'm going to break it because we're all here and I'm mad. And, you know, one person broke something and I want to break something. Hey, look, there's a pile of bricks here.
If it's planned destruction, it's not rioting.
It's planned destruction. You should go to jail anyway. But I think rioting, doesn't it involve basically like it's an emotionally charged groupthink situation where the emotion of the crowd is making the decisions with zero regard for private property.
For private property and people. I think that like if we had whatever, like racist cops here, and we had been protesting outside of the police station for a long time, holding our signs saying, you know, too many black people have been arrested, wrongly convicted, you know, look at all these white people or whatever it is. And we're saying, hey, we want a new police chief. We want a new whatever. And they're continuing to just ignore it and laugh at it. And you can like look down the list of the Floyds, you know, of that city. And it's very obvious. Then I think you direct that at those politicians and that sheriff or that police chief in the most gentlemanly fashionably way possible. In other words, like, I feel like we're so sloppy these days. We can't even have a conversation with our enemy, you know? Like I watched Heather, we watched these old kung fu movies, and you had these like two kung fu masters, you know, they have dojos across the street from each other. And then it's like, you're taking my students. Why don't you come over for tea? And then they sit down and they have tea, and like, we love kung fu. Kung fu's great. Yeah, we love it. We love it. You know, but there's some things that you have to be my age to really understand. And the guy's like, well, then why don't you show me these things? I'd like to find out. And they set their teacups down, and then they try to kill each other. Like, why can't we just
life be more
really
like a kung fu movie?
discuss it? Like, why can't
Your taste in TV is just...
It's like we were talking about earlier. Like, if you and I are going to get upset about something, why don't we just put on some boxing gloves and agree to like punch each other in the face? So
why are you so aggressive?
It's just my nature, man. I don't know what to tell you. How else are we going to do it? Are we going to pen pal? Like, I'm going to write a letter?
I can never tell with you. I can never tell whether you're coming to hug me or coming up to headbutt
my
me.
Feelings. You really hurt my feelings. Here's my list of demands.
Wait till the end of the show.
Don't shake my hand so hard the next time.
Ow. Sincerely.
No, but I think that you have to try that. Like, you have to be in meeting with the police chief. You have to be like here in Buda. I know the guy. He's a police officer, and his whole entire responsibility is how the citizens view the police department. So, like, if you think that our police department needs more racial training, like, he's the guy that you're going to talk to, and he's going to explain to you, well, this is what we've been doing to promote whatever, like no racism in our department. Here's the courses. Look, everyone has to get certified every 2 years. They have to redo it or whatever. Like, he's the guy. So you got to go find that guy and talk to him. And yeah,
I just think people don't want to listen at times.
That for sure
need to be listening.
That's when you get out the boxing gloves, man. All right, you're not listening
guys.
to me anymore.
I'm done.
Boxing gloves.
All right, let's do this. Y'all ready?
So ready.
Now it's time for our deciding factor.
Okay, so the question of the day: does protesting change anything? I really think we probably should have worded this different, but I mean, we've got clear evidence that protesting in our history has been actually an important thing. So protesting does change things. I was even over in France when they had the Yellow Jacket protest. I believe that was 2019 when that all took place. That was interesting.
Brexit thing, or
no? So they were. It was like workers' rights, labor rights. I don't know the full details, but I remember at the time we had looked into it, and it was very important. And I had tear gas all in my eyes, and
nice.
Didn't get to destroy anything. I was actually scared crapless, but Robert was with me, and he was having too much fun. We were the only two Americans riding Lime scooters, driving back and forth, going, "What's going on, guys? What's going on?"
Maybe we could figure out why they hate Americans.
Yeah. So what's funny is the cops can tell that we're Americans from a mile away, and we're just like, we just want to go that way, and they're just walking. Everybody else was getting stopped, and we were just like, So now the real part of the problem I have with protesting is the rioting stage. However, when we talk about Boston Tea Party, y'all cannot seem to tell me a good enough response in it to really make up my mind on when is it okay to go to the next level to get the attention you need. Because most of every issue that's going to be out there that you're going to protest has to reach Congress, Senate, or the White House, right? Or maybe it's a state government. But the problem is how do you get that attention? Is protesting alone going to be enough? Is there a stair step you need to be able to take? I don't like seeing cities getting destroyed. I think there was a lot of agitation that took place, especially in 2020 with the BLM, things such as Antifa. That really pissed me off, especially when they tried to come to Austin and do the same thing. Don't mess with our home. I mean, that pisses me off more than anything. But I don't fully have the answer either, because I think there's a lot of people in control that don't listen and won't make the changes needed. And I can't just vote somebody out of office by myself. Everybody else has to see it. So how do you make that change? That's where I'm really confused with, but that's not the question. So protesting can change the world or anything? Yeah.
Where's option C, Barbara?
Yeah, well, yeah, option C though. Can it change something? But is it changing it in the way that you want it changed? I guess that's what I am struck with in sort of the conundrum here. Like, do we think it changes anything? I think very often for the worse. I think if you're not intelligently protesting, I think you can look back at the Boston Tea Party and look at all of the things that led up to it and see that they were at a point where they were ready to declare war. Okay. And so I think, at what point do you say, I've got to get enough attention that we're united, we can do a thing together? Well, they knew what the thing was that they wanted to do. I feel like the majority of our protests today are just people letting off steam. And personally, when I see someone protesting, I think you're out of arguments. That's why you're doing this, is that you don't have something better to say. Because I could be convinced if you'll talk to me, right? Like, I think
Can you?
Just because you haven't yet doesn't mean it's impossible.
Are you still having conversations with Jared Hanning from our other podcast?
He stopped talking to me.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure we've changed your mind on something, haven't we? I'm sure it happened.
We'll look back.
Yeah,
But the
check
point
back.
is that it could. Like, we're going to do another show today. You never know.
I'm going to protest if you don't say that we've changed your mind on something.
Okay.
I'll
You
get
know
a
what I'll probably
sign.
say? Be like, show me the money. Like, show me the facts. I think that if we
Facts.
were
Texas
more,
is the best state to live in. Have we convinced you of that yet?
Duh.
That's the next
Yeah.
podcast for
you guys
sure.
had me at the airport. I mean, that
Mm.
was, I'm just saying.
Because you had Salt Lake in the airport ready for you.
No, because the guys on the plane, they're nice. Anyway, it's beside the point. Yeah, I guess you convinced me that Texas is the best place to be. But generally speaking, I think that we don't do protests right. And so I'm going to say that most of the time, we're not making change like we want to. If you want to get something done, don't protest. Go get a job. You want to get something done? Like, go have a conversation with someone. Go get trained to be.
What if
the
they are
thing.
protesting the fact that the government has taken their job? How are they supposed to get a job?
They should work. Like, start your own thing. Go off book. Go under the, like, there's ways. Maybe you come at it through a loophole. Maybe you get a lawyer and sue for the right to work. I can get behind that. That's the kind of protest that I can understand. Just standing there waving a flag, I'm going to be like, wow, you got time on your hands.
Cool hat.
All right, Marvin, your
Yeah.
turn.
Yeah. Yeah, I had to check the other podcasts to get that inside joke. What's the question? Does podcasting change the world? I think it does.
Does protesting change anything?
Does protesting? Protesting?
Yeah.
Does protesting change anything? It certainly does. You can't have that much energy in a location and that not have an impact. The question may be more important is, what is it changing? How is it impacting? Burning a bunch of buildings down? Is that what you're trying to accomplish? Or not? Raiding the Capitol? What did you get done by doing that?
I took pictures at Pelosi's desk. Duh.
What's the clear message that was sent? So I think that protesting should fall out of a mission and an organized plan, and protesting is a part of that. In addition to electing the right people, advocating for these things, and having a clear way to communicate this message, agenda. And I think that's how you get more people behind it. And that's how you actually convince people. I think that in both cases, the Capitol being broken into and vandalized or whatever, and also BLM movement, every white person that I know that I've talked to is all behind racial, not inequality, but like the same equality. There you go. Like everybody wants that. Everybody can get behind that until you're burning all of my friends' businesses down. And now I'm like, bruh, what? Like I'm all in on that side, but what is this? Doesn't match. I think no one is a fan of like people getting shot and vandalizing the Capitol, but probably everyone in the United States wants to know that our election system, we can trust it, and that our politicians will listen to us. It's a part of like not being heard and feeling like you don't have any control that makes people have these little temper tantrums. And that's just not like the temper tantrum side of it isn't going to solve things. I think you gotta be more organized than that. You have to have a better plan. And I think that's what I saw with Martin Luther King, is that he had a real plan, and he wasn't going to stop until things changed. And he inspired so many people peacefully to do that. You know, Gandhi, how many millions of people are like not eating? The dude was really powerless, if you think about it. Didn't even have any clothes, and he convinced millions of people to have an impact. So yeah, certainly protesting makes a difference, but it won't make the difference that you want it to if you're not clear on what you're doing and organized on it.
Well, that was a great insight from the both of y'all. Appreciate it. This conversation obviously is much bigger than just this segment that we did. So feel free to make sure you share your comments, send your feedback to us.
Photos to John.
Tell us if you're protesting us, otherwise we don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
Some people have, right? I mean, I don't know if they protested us, but they were like, your show's stupid.
If you protest our show, we don't care. It won't do anything, no
We
matter
like
how
it.
bad you protest.
We like it. Say bad things about us to all your friends
You really want to
at the
show,
Deciding Factor
you
podcast.
join in.
Hey, better yet, if you want a fun drinking game, if you're watching this show on video, go back and see how many times Alton stared at himself on the video. Drink every time that takes place, and share the number
Try
that
to
you counted.
Make sure it's on my good side, you know?
All right. So make sure you catch any of our other podcasts every Monday, 6 a.m. Unless we're sleeping, then we just may not post anything. But also catch our Deciding Factor Extra in a much shorter segment, but a little funnier. Wouldn't you say?
So,
And on that bombshell. Do they say that on the Grand Tour? They can't say that anymore, can they? Anyway, go ahead.
I don't know where you're going with half the crap you say. Anyhow, we got to settle something outside after we stop recording. So maybe we'll see you on the next episode. Everyone say bye.
Later.
bye.
This has been another episode of The Deciding Factor, giving you food for thought on real life issues. Be sure to click, like, and subscribe to this podcast, as well as all your big social media outlets, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Don't forget to check out our website at thedecidingfactorpodcast.com and give us comments and feedback. Until next time, stay safe and remember to keep an open mind.